Hello and welcome to episode 61 of JagaVision. I'm Jared Nyberg. I'm the co-owner of JagaSilk, and we do these episodes every Thursday, 1 o'clock, broadcasting to YouTube, Twitch, and Facebook. We bring on guests and rotate who we bring on, and we drink tea together and solve the problems of the world is generally what we have on the agenda. Today is ostensibly a holiday where we're located here in Victoria. It doesn't really feel like it should be. There's been some pretty challenging stuff that's been going on. I mean, for a long time, but more recently, the residential school children and all of the unmarked graves for the time that the state and church were kidnapping kids from their homes and bringing them to these boarding schools in Canada has been coming to light just how violent and terrible that part of our history is, and it's still very much a living and breathing horrible part of what's going on in this country. So I think that a lot of people are choosing to take today and really look at it and try to understand, I guess, a little bit of what are some ways that as humans and people, sharing this planet together, how we can live together a little bit more harmoniously. And it's very challenging to do that with the current power structures. So I think it's trying to understand that a little bit better. I think that it's meaningful to start talking about where we are. So I think the Lekwungen-speaking peoples of the island that JagaSilk is located on, this is unceded territory, and to recognize that, I think, is important. Sometimes a group of different First Nations here in this area call themselves the Husaitnich, a nation. It's a group of different nations, like the Pakwachin and the Songhees, and there's the Tsartlip, etc. And the cultures are ancient, the histories are deep, and it's with gratitude that we are here. Want to put that out there. I don't know really the right way to go about today's show, so I'm just gonna have some tea. I'm gonna have a really good, amazing guest on today. His name is Michael Isted. He's the owner of the Herbal in Germany. I believe he set up shop in England, so I'll have to ask him for a little bit more detail on that. He might just be in Germany right now. And we're going to drink some matcha together. We're going to talk about it. We're going to have a little bit of a chance to catch up. I haven't seen Michael in a number of years. This is the tea I'm having. This is from India. So this is a family, the Lochan family, who own the Doak estate. Doak is in Bihar, and something really incredible that they do in Bihar is, or at the Doak estate in Bihar, is that they donate actually all of the profits from the estate to poverty alleviation in the area. So really cool social justice element to what they do. And we really like also how experimental they are, and that the leaders of the process on the farm, the leaders of the process of manipulating the leaves into a finished product are the mother and daughter. Neha is the daughter. I don't know her mother's name, so I call her Mother Lochan. I just found out recently that she's also involved in the process, which is kind of amazing. It's hard to find tea that's been managed from start to finish by a woman in India. So it's lovely to be able to bring in teas from these guys. This is my first time having their 2021 harvest, so gonna see what that's all about. So in the heart is definitely the stuff that's going on. I remember when I was in university, that's when I first learned about it. I was doing a research project, and I stumbled across literature that was talking about the residential schools there was a United Church minister or defrocked minister named Kevin Annette, and invited him to speak in our class, and some elders from the local Cowichan Nation, and yeah, it was pretty eye-opening. Got me pretty depressed for a while. I find that every time that Canada Day comes around, I get a little bit angry, and I don't consider myself an angry person, but it feels really odd. It's like Columbus Day too, you know, like Columbus is responsible for the extermination, really, of all of the First Nations people on the island of Haiti, and a lot of damage happened after contact, and I don't think it needed to be that way. You know, there was some pretty amazing initial dialogue, and you know, like I think that a big part of the why was just how damaging the viruses and bacteria that the conquistadors brought with them, and how that would go ahead and weaken communities pretty terribly. And then you'd have these weakened communities that were then forced to battle some pretty atrocious tactics. And so there was a lot of damage done that way, by, yeah, both on purpose and well, yeah. So good book though is called American Holocaust. If you're watching and you're interested in looking up some history, there's a writer, his last name's Stannard, and he's got some amazing, there's like a conversation about the first time that the new folks saw the villages and the towns and the cities and the metropolises of the new, well, they call it the New World, but this ancient world on the other side of the Atlantic. So it was pretty cool stuff, and just drives home just how beautiful and how ancient and how powerful these cultures have been. Okay, so tea for me is kind of interesting. I think that it can be somewhat cathartic. It's very therapeutic. This idea of, you know, when you're feeling a little bit out of sorts, having something very calming, and it's the textures and the smells. It kind of transports you a bit. It can be a really also a really powerful tool for community. I think that there's another book that really spoke to me. I think it's called 3 Cups of Tea, and it's about a fellow who got rescued after getting injured in a climb in the Himalayas, and he vows to come back and help the village that basically saved his life. And the culture says that, you know, the first cup was the strangers, the 2 cups your friends, 3rd cup your family, or something. I can't remember what the full rationale was for all the 3 cups, but it was just basically this idea that, you know, you have cups of tea with people, and it's an opportunity to talk and connect. I was actually thinking about how there can be really, really bad interactions between peoples that have never met each other before, that we often, as a society, will other each other, and we won't really try to understand how many elements of what we see and what we believe are similar, and instead of searching for that connection, I think that we can end up searching for a way to other, and by othering we can afford to do some really terrible things to each other. And I think it's through finding connections and sharing that we can do so much more. Oh, that's quite nice. I was drinking a different tea from these guys, and I was just really concerned that it just wasn't malty enough. There wasn't a lot of depth that it would get later into the flavor, and it would kind of wash away any sort of complexity. It would open up interesting and then end not so nice. But as I was saying, you know, it's through sharing that we can connect, and I remember, watching a documentary, and it was just talking about initial contact with communities in the Amazon rainforest that have never had outside contact. Like, this documentary was, I think, in the 70s, 80s. And I remember that one of the first things they would do is share food, because I think when you gift food to another community, you're gifting resources, and it's such a simple yet effective way of saying, hey, I'm not here to hurt you. I'm here to talk. I'm here to understand you, or I'm at least here to trade. And so starting with food and drink is a very powerful tool for connection. Yeah, that's really nice. So I'm really digging that. That's I'm kind of surprised. Everything that I had out of India this year so far, all the first flushes, I'm waiting on some second flush selections, were very underwhelming. I was told that it was because of the rain. It was an especially rainy time. Last year, when they were going out to harvest tea, there was an issue with the coronavirus coming in, and the government had to put everybody in lockdown a few days into the first flush harvest. Bear in mind, the first flush, seriously, is so important for the economy of these tea growing regions in India, and Darjeeling in particular was really hurt economically last year. I mean, most communities, any time you're going to have a lockdown, but I think it's also carries forward. If you can't, I don't know if you're watching and you're a gardener, what you do this year, and how you maintain your plants this year, your hedges this year, your garden this year is going to impact what happens next year, and even the year after, or even the year after that. So, they say in Japan you can let a field go wild for maybe a couple years, but that's it. So you gotta be watching it. And if you go in and you expect to be able to just leave your tea garden alone for a couple of years and come back and everything's gonna be okay, that's not necessarily the case. So yeah, no, that's really good tea. There's a little bit of tomato in there. There's some strawberry. I'm tasting some malt. It's one of their younger leaf selections. The family that own the Doak estate were experimenting with making green teas and oolongs, etc. And to do that out of India was really interesting. I wasn't super keen on some of these, but they're really nice full leaf crimson teas, fantastic. And this was a new thing they started doing last year, is harvesting the leaves when they're really young. Like, we're talking like maybe like 4 or 5 centimeters long on a kind of a medium leaf size tea plant. And then drying that out and doing some really, what I found also really interesting with them is we've had the honor of participating in 2 different sort of methodologies for creating crimson teas. And the first one was with the Kawakamis in Mandokoro in Japan. And I remember we harvested the tea with them, and we put the tea leaves onto raised beds, and they were blowing the tea leaves with air. And before they put it on the raised bed, they weighed the whole batch, and then they were able to weigh it 10 hours in and see if it was at the 20% moisture loss that they needed to take it to the next part of the process. It was very important that there was a controlled moisture loss. It was humid, and they didn't have the ability on the raised bed sort of area to control the humidity of the room. So that's going to impact, of course, how much moisture is reduced through this process. Anyways, by using a scale, they were able to do that. And so when they got to, 20% moisture loss, then they were able to move it to the next stage, which was to put it in a rolling machine, which would break down the cell walls, increase sugar production, all that stuff, or sugar development, I should say. And then they were able to take that into a fermentation room. That room actually had controlled humidity, controlled temperature, etc. And it was kind of like when you're making yogurt or something. It was like, I think, pretty warm, but not like really hot room. And then from there, they did a little bit more massaging and then they put it into a tray, like a tray heater. It's like a oven system, and then they cooked it. At that point, it was quite brown. Whereas when we were visiting the Takakis, it was a lot more just ad hoc, and it was very much by feel, touch. And I really preferred when you're using data to make your decisions. I think you can produce really consistent teas. Wildcard teas are pretty amazing, but we've hit 1:15. I'm gonna just quickly check if Michael has joined us. Michael, are you on the line? Are you there? I think I heard you jump in.
Hey, yes.
Yes, you are.
Here.
Okay, awesome. Okay, welcome. Welcome to JagaVision, Michael. It's great to have you on episode 61.
Great to see you, Jared. Nice to be here.
Yeah. No, I'm. You want to tell everybody who's watching maybe a little bit about who you are, and maybe a little bit about the project that you do, the Herbal, and so they get a little bit of an understanding there.
Of course. So yeah, I'm Michael Isted. I'm a herbalist. I have a company called The Herbal. We are based out of the UK. The Herbal is really a platform that we created really to showcase how people can integrate nature into their lives in very contemporary, beautiful and interesting ways. My background is in sort of food and drink. I've been working in food and drink my whole life, and primarily sort of consulting for restaurants, bars, hotels,
right.
Restaurants, creating drinks concepts to go into new and existing venues. Studied herbal medicine, nutrition, aromatherapy, and now with my background in food and drink and my understanding of plant medicine, I use that as a bit of a platform to showcase the dynamism of plants and how we really create novel ways in which people can ingest plants.
Right.
So it's cool.
Yeah, you have also like a pretty expansive book that you wrote on the topic as well, right? And you also I met you when you were traveling over here, when you were in Vancouver, etc., helping companies put together some really interesting herbal inspired cocktail programs, and you teach on the subject as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have a book. Yeah, I'm an author too. I always do that bit. So it's actually I have copies here. They are. There's one in German, one in English.
Amazing. Okay.
I think it's in Spanish now and French.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's called Herbal's Guide to Botanical Drinks. It's a book on. It's more than a book on drinks. It's a little bit about our work. And again, it's non-alcoholic drinks.
Right.
And it's essentially how you can garner and build those relationships with nature. And once you've done that, how do you process the plants? How do you work with the plants to create delicious drinks, essentially?
Amazing. Do you wildcraft at all and harvest and then create some of these botanical creations?
100%.
Yeah.
And
okay.
Particularly now, this time of year I'm in Germany currently.
Mm-hmm.
In Central Europe, it's a really good time for the plants. I was out this afternoon picking a lot of different plants. So we had a lot. I don't know if you know meadowsweet, for example.
Sweet. Okay, that's awesome.
That's all just coming into flower at the moment, and that's a beautiful herb. Yeah. So as much of that as possible, and wherever we work, it's the same principle. So how do we then help our clients build those relationships with the nature that surrounds them, and then integrate that into their beverage program or into their or into their whatever it might be.
We had a guest on last year who he owns this company called Requiem Naturals, and he was taking this process that's used in tea, enzymatic oxidation, and he was applying it to fireweed, and he was purposefully crushing the fireweed, and he was bringing out these oxidative qualities, and he was developing flavors in a really interesting way. And he borrowed yellow tea concepts where he would put a blanket over top of the leaves during the wet phase when it was crushed but not quite dry, and then bringing out interesting flavors that way. And he was doing like he put it into like a sealed bag and drove over it so he could
that's awesome
to crush it down, and he made a crimson tea or a black tea essentially with fireweed, or at least borrowed the concepts that are used for making crimson teas and did it, and it was really interesting. He was able to pull out some like the difference between, say, the normal way of doing it, and I shouldn't say normal. There's lots of different things you can do in the standard process to make it well or make it badly. But it was really fascinating to apply this enzymatic oxidation. I feel like it kind of opens up a can of worms. Like you could just keep. Have you done any of this? Have you ever experimented with drying in a really unusual way? Or?
Not exactly, but I'm very interested in this. And there's a lot of Japanese research around just how you handle different herbs, for example,
right?
And then what constituents it brings out of the particular plants, depending on how you handle it. And so I'm very interested in that. But that level of detail in herbal products or herbal medicine is just not there enough.
Well, we buy peppermint from a farm in northern Alberta. The owner, his grandfather's actually from Germany, and there seems to be kind of there's some really big brands that come out of Germany for herbal medicine, and there seems to be such a particular carefulness that's and also bringing out these medicinal qualities. And one of the things that he was talking about was the way that he dries the peppermint. If he dries it and it's kind of dry to the touch, if he puts that into a bag right away, it actually dulls the color. But if he waits a little longer until it's really dry past what he can really tell even, then it maintains the color. Is this sound familiar? Is this a...
Yeah, this is totally familiar, and it's part of the reason actually why I started my business. It was around herbal tisanes or herbal teas in the beginning.
Right.
Because most consumers, especially when it comes to herbal tisanes or teas, there's no respect. There's no connection to nature. Nobody knows where the plant's coming from. Nobody knows where it's handled. All of these things, and still in the mainstream, it's still not great. So what you've just described, for me, is how it should be, but that's an anomaly.
It is. The peppermint I get out of Oregon, even if they're it's certified organic, and I think ostensibly they're trying to be careful. But just these detailed processes that make such a big difference, I think maybe just impossible for them. And
but it's about what people's expectations are to pay for something.
That's true.
And so you probably notice yourself. I can order a kilogram of dried herb delivered to my door for €15.
Yeah.
It's a kilo of dried herb is an awful lot of fresh plant. And the amount of work and effort and love and artistry that goes into just producing that 1 kilo, it's just not respected. People don't understand. There's a woman called Anne Umbrecht who's done some brilliant work around this. It's called the Sustainable Herbs Program.
Okay.
And she delves really deep into the supply chain and how disrespectful it is currently, and how much work we can do to improve this.
That makes a lot of sense, because it is true. There's this. I feel like the way that, and this is very true in my industry as well. Camellia sinensis, you can get, again, a kilogram of dried herb delivered to your door for €15, and or over here it would be $30, and that's delivered. You can do that. It's interesting because we parallel a lot of our clients are in the coffee industry, so I get to talk to them about the difference between commodity coffee and specialty coffee. And I think that there is that differentiation that can be made in tea, this specialty tea versus commodity tea. And I think that you can say that in herbs too. There's specialty herbs versus commodity herbs, and what you're doing strikes me as whenever I'm reading your social media or following your work, I always think this is specialty stuff. This is really next level. And there's a company, and a good friend of mine, he's learned accordion from gypsies, and he's super, he's traveled the world for learning Georgian singing, but he's super into tea and really into herbs, and he loves to bring this specialty tea obsession on harvesting techniques to herbs. It's a company in Quebec called Les Simples. Not pronouncing it right, but if it were in English, it would be just Simples. Les Simples. And
I've heard of this company.
You have? Okay, all right. It's pretty small, in that he's mostly just farmers markets, and he has a little bit of online retail, but the product is breathtaking. The sophistication and complexity of flavor off of, say, Augustus, I think, is this great hyssop, or they call it anise hyssop, right? Yeah, it's just amazing. Like, I just can't believe it. Like, I often find that when I'm making herbal blends for JagaSilk, I'm spending a lot of time trying to find, okay, I find a really good herbal source, but I'm kind of in this middle world where, like, I kind of need a little bit too much or a little bit too little, depending on who you are. The craftsmanship that I want, I need too much. But and I don't want to buy from these massive companies, so it's kind of interesting. But anyways, Simple is really interesting. He's like doing these things where he's just harvesting the flowers, and then he does another harvest that's just like, you know, the top bits, and you know how in tea there's this whole 2 leaves in a bud concept.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, when it comes to herbs, it's actually quite a simple process.
Right.
It's just about taking care.
Right.
You know, I think what's different from tea is that in tea, it's all about the process.
Right.
It says, what do you do with that leaf? Obviously, it's how you pick the leaf too.
Mm-hmm.
Then what happens to that leaf once it's picked?
Right.
And there's a number of different, depending on what tea you're drinking, you know more than I do, but it is quite a lot about the process. Where with herbs, you almost want, for me still, if you want to drink herbs, the best thing to do is go out into the wild, pick them, and drink them straight away. You know, it's interesting to have Camellia sinensis that way. Yeah, right. It is. I agree. You can just fill a pot of tea with it and just go at a. And I love a fresh herb tea. I love this idea of, we have lemon balm growing in our garden and peppermint and all this. I just love to just harvest it, drink it. Right? But it is definitely different. There is a the way you dry it and the flavor volatiles, etc., that are released or sort of transformed during the drying process have a really interesting effect on the end flavor. And I don't know if I have a preference per se. I know it's a lot easier. You know what I also really like about drying the herbs is the practicality of it. Obviously, my fresh herbs aren't available to me all year, so there's a really nice sort of storage element to it. It's like canning, you know, like fresh strawberries blow your mind, but it's great to also be able to process them into a jam or some sort of compote and then be able to access that strawberry flavor the rest of the year as well. You know, it's kind of, but how you do it is it's gonna impact how well it stores and the complexity of flavor down the process. So with herbs, it's really about your drying technique. Yeah, and drying technique, and then how do you store it? Right. But there's probably more parallels to tea than we probably realize. I bet you it's really similar to more like there's very hands-off tea drying techniques, I guess is what I'm saying, and they produce a different style that's really interesting too. Yeah. Michael, do you want to maybe bring some water to temperature? Maybe we could make some matcha while we're talking. Would that be? Yeah, let's do it. Okay. You know, might as well, right? Well, I'm sure we could talk for hours and hours on this subject, but and I want to continue this conversation, but let's make some tea. 72 degrees, right? Is that good? 72 is great. I'm a big fan of 65 for this tea, so you're pretty close. What we found with matcha and really Japanese teas in general, especially the delicate ones, is the temperature of the water that you need to use is really connected to how long the tea factory has steamed the leaves. So 30 seconds is pretty common in Kyoto, whereas they take it closer to a minute in Fukuoka. And this tea is from Fukuoka, so they've developed the sugars a little bit longer through the steaming process, makes it a little bit more what's the word here? Opposite of fragile. Forgiving. It's a little bit more forgiving. So you can get away with a hotter temperature. You actually should use a hotter temperature because it's going to bring out a little bit more of the floral flavor dynamics. Whereas in Kyoto, it's not about it being nutty. They like it to be really focused on those bright flavors and those really sophisticated aromatics. It's really easy to lose them though. As I'm sure you're well aware, those volatiles are what we smell, and so how we protect them and how we release them is going to have a major impact on our experience with those flavors. Okay, so I would love you to clip open this package. I've got it. You've got it. Okay, awesome. Got it open.
All right. And then I'm a big believer in the use of scales. I love accurate preparation, but it's not required. A leveled off teaspoon will do everything you need it to do, essentially. But if you do have a scale, 2.0 grams on a sieve on your bowl is super great. There we go. Are we
pretty went to measures. I'm like a living scale.
You are? Okay, amazing. I have dreams, Michael, of a table that that has a scale built into it, and I'll just nudge it with my knee and it will tear, and everything I put on the table will just be like measurable.
Yeah, well, I think that would be good for the fun as well, right? Just give it a scale.
Nice. Yeah, exactly. Why don't we have that? It should just be one. That's a great idea.
Surely they can do that now.
Oh man, we should patent it. We should. Yeah, we're gonna be rich. Okay.
So we're doing 2.5 grams, right?
Be able to. You're doing 2.0 grams.
Okay. I think that's probably. I think I'm on about 2.2 there, but that's okay.
You know, I generally say 0.1 gram of error, but honestly, this tea can handle being a little bit stronger. I think you're going to be happy at 2.2. So what I do then is I tare it on the scale, and then I take my 65 °C water, and I fill it to 90. This style of tea that we're making right now is called usucha, and we're going to follow it with koicha. Actually, you know what? We should do this backwards. Let's do this backwards. Let's start with koicha and then do usucha. That's what we'll do today. So what I want you to do is actually, that's going to mess up everything. You have the right temperature for usucha. Never mind. Back to the original plan. Usucha, 90 grams of water, please, on top of this. So, and then once you've done that, you can, in preparation for the next way we're going to work with this tea, we'll do, we'll be doing 15 grams of boiling water. So it'll be a very small amount of water over top of the same amount of tea. Okay, but this time we're drinking usucha. Have you ever had koicha before, Michael? Like
I have.
Okay, I think it'll be really interesting to do. I think when you visited us here at the tea bar in Victoria, I made you an usucha, so that's what we're having right now. So when you're whisking, you want to draw M's in the liquid, and then you whisk vigorously in the center, and then you develop that liquid. It's really helpful to hold the whisk perpendicular in the bowl rather than on an angle, and then whisking with kind of like a pendulum. And I tell people it helps to stand. If you want to try standing there, Michael, and if you anchor the bowl with your left hand there, perfect, and then over top of the bowl, right, like that, and then you wanna do like a pendulum. So loose wrist, firm fingers, and it's equal forward and back. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, perfect. And then I always say like relax, and then and then you it's, I call it 3, 5, and 7, total of 15 seconds. So 3 seconds of gathering in, 5 seconds of whisking vigorously and adding air, and then 7 seconds of integrating that air into a nice foamy froth. And then it should look like that. And then when we're drinking it, you want to just fill your mouth with 1/3 of the liquid, and you're going to be in a good place. This one you're kind of whisking a little longer because I'm giving you some pointers. If this was like one of our cafe standards, it would over extract really easily. But I think you're going to be in good. You're going to be in good shape with this one. It's going to be still really lovely because it doesn't have as much acid. Okay. What do you think? Is that okay? Drinking different water than me, so I actually have no idea what you're drinking, but I hope it's good.
It's good here.
Is it?
The water's good.
The water's
it's delicious. Yeah, really good.
Really good. Okay. Oh, awesome. Okay. I'm always so worried, especially when we're really far away, because I had horrible water in southern France, and I was like, I don't know what it's going to be like in Germany. Michael seems like he'd be careful with his water, but you never know. We have different moments in our lives where we have access and we don't to water that we're really happy with. So
yeah, it's very unusual for me to be drinking tea at this time of day.
I believe you. Yeah, this is something that I, you know,
it's very delicious.
Cool. Oh yeah, I'm into it.
It's quite robust.
You know, this has 5 different tea varieties in it. It has Samidori and Goko, Okumidori, Yabukita, It also has some tsuyu hikari, so it's kind of like an apple pie where you have Gala and Granny Smith and Red Delicious, and they all are kind of playing a role to build an ideal flavor structure. So this is the Takaki family kind of blending to perfection, in their opinion. And it's the highest grade of matcha we bring in. I don't like to talk about grades because I think that's so personal, like in terms of whether or not it's better or worse. But on a very technical level, this is the highest grade of matcha that we bring in. And if it was judged in competition, it would be the winner. I have another matcha, though, that I personally prefer that's a single variety. And it's interesting to me because I also really love this one. And whenever I drink it, I'm like, yeah, that's perfect. It's like, it's so, it's got this really nice aromatic quality. And I don't know about last time you were in. If was it 3 years ago or was it 2 years ago?
Yes, it must be 3 years ago.
Okay, so if it was 3 years ago, I don't know if we would have had this unit behind me. This is a matcha mill.
No, you were just. I think it was on the water, or you were close to getting it.
Okay, so we're pretty stoked. Like that matcha that you're drinking right now, that was milled here.
Yeah, that's awesome. I noticed that. That's great.
So pretty stoked about that, and we actually have another unit right here that we're testing, and it's a smaller unit. It's kind of sleeker, and we're trying to see if we can get a similar texture or not. And if that'll work, then we're hoping that we can get cafes to get Tencha from us, and then they can mill matcha fresh to order, which would be amazing.
Yeah, that's awesome.
But it's on the horizon. But what I wanted to ask you about with this tea is do you ever see in your herbal concoctions and your herbal blends that you do you ever blend the same herb but different
all the time,
different varieties of that herb to make a perfect flavor structure?
Yeah, or what we like to do is it's the same herb but then picked or harvested throughout its growing season.
Okay.
And then combining that together, and then obviously the different extraction techniques of a particular herb is really interesting too. So then you capture the true. I'm fairly obsessed with capturing what is the essence of a particular plant.
Well, could you give an example? Like, is there like
let's take hawthorn. You know hawthorn?
Yeah. It's really good for hypertension, right? Like people that have high blood pressure and.
Yeah, traditionally used as a heart tonic. Hypo or hyper. Blood, heart, exactly. So you have the leaves growing throughout most of the year. Then you have the flowers growing in May, depending on where you are in the world, but around May time. And then you have obviously the berries in autumn. And then the berries, even in that space of time, will have very differing sets of constituents through its growing process. So what we like to do is pick the leaves during the course of the year, pick the flower just before it's flowered and when it's budding, then when it's flowered, then with the berries pick them just as they're becoming ripe, and then when they are ripe, and then creating different medicines from all of those parts of the plant and then combining them to form one medicine. So you're really capturing that hawthorn bush or that hawthorn flower throughout its growing process.
Does the bark play a role too? Do you ever
don't use it? But what we did do recently, or not me personally, but a friend of mine made a wood vinegar. So burnt the hawthorn wood and then there's a way of collecting the smoke. It's something they call wood vinegar, and hawthorn was amazing.
That'd be cool. We have a kombucha program here. It'd be really interesting to work with kind of a smoked hawthorn wood in one of the kombuchas. It would be kind of
totally. Yeah, and then with all those different parts I've just discussed, then there's different extraction techniques. So you might tincture some, which traditionally you would use with alcohol. We use traditional hydrodistillations like a hydrosol, CO2 extraction. So you dry it and then you can put it with a combination of carbon dioxide, heat, and a little bit of pressure. You could then do ultrasound. You could then, do a water decoction, and then combine all those things together. And in that way, you've really got an ultimate plant medicine.
I have to pause you there because I'm confused about two things that you mentioned right now that sound really cool. What is the carbon dioxide one and the ultrasound one? I don't understand.
So CO2 is a way of, it's a little bit like an essential oil.
Okay.
But it's a different extraction technique, and it's more organoleptically akin to whatever you're extracting.
Okay.
So certainly for things like ginger, cinnamon, spices, it's a phenomenal way of extracting the aromatic compounds from a plant.
So you put it in a vacuum and you flush it with, and then you put carbon dioxide, like flush the vacuum, and then you allow the extracted oil to come out of a spigot or something like that. Is that how the process looks, or?
Yeah, totally. You've got it. It's very crude way of talking about it, but essentially you're putting it into a vessel.
Yeah.
You would then warm that vessel up slightly, usually to around 40 to 50 degrees, depending on what plant you're working with. So gently heat that, and then you would expose it to carbon dioxide. And then you would add pressure to that, and then that combination of carbon dioxide, pressure, and heat creates what's called supercritical fluid period. So it turns into a fluid essentially.
One more time, the word. What kind of fluid? What was? I was just wondering what the name of the fluid was again. It was
supercritical.
Okay.
And then that will just strip the plant of its aromatic compounds. And then what's really good about it, so if you're making essential oils, for example, it's like you're bludgeoning the plant material, really. You can't be very precise on what you want to extract.
Right.
Because you're just heating up. Sure, you can control the heat slightly.
Yeah.
But you've got very little control over what you're extracting from the plant.
Okay.
But with CO2 extraction, you can change the pressure and you can change the heat. And you could change the amount of CO2 as well.
Right.
And so you create parameters, so you can go in there and extract a certain molecule because it's extracted at a certain temperature and a certain combination of temperature and heat.
Those are intimately interconnected too, right? Is temperature and pressure.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So you can be quite precise of what you want from a particular plant.
Wow, that's fascinating.
And it's it produces, like I said, for some things it produces very, very beautiful oils.
And hawthorn is one of them.
Hawthorn CO2, I've never seen actually.
Okay, that'd be interesting, wouldn't it?
Hawthorn CO2.
Huh.
But yeah, you can essentially put anything. I've done it with tea. I've done it with some sort of fairly grand.
I was just thinking how cool that would be.
And we oolongs through my CO2 extractor, and it's beautiful. It's a little project I'm working on actually. It's like a tea scent.
And yes. Can you consume it? Like if you just added drops to water, is it just a way of getting the essence out of something and then just like?
Yeah, it's not very water soluble. There's some water soluble components in the extract, more so than essential oil. But essentially it's fat soluble. But yes, so you could.
What if you put it in alcohol? Would that open it?
Alcohol's good, but you can also put it into a crude way of doing it at home. Is if you just if you want to put flavour of water, you could put 1 drop's too much, and that's 1 drop for about 1.5 litres of water, let's say. And then you could just mix that together and then pass it through like a coffee filter. Then you just get the water soluble essences into the water. But yeah, they're traditionally CO2 extraction traditionally used as their food items, so they were really developed for food flavouring.
Wow. That's so cool. What about the ultrasound one? Unless there was more that you wanted to say on the CO2 subject.
No, I mean the CO2 is. No, I think I've said enough on CO2.
No, that's so awesome. I'm fascinated. I've never heard of it before.
Well, I would recommend people try. Particularly, ginger is a good starting point because most ginger essential oils. Are dreadful, to be quite frank. They're very nasty and dusty, and they don't capture the true vibrancy of like fresh ginger. But CO2, very alive, very bright. And
is it medicinal? Like if you use this for say ginger, ginger's really good for indigestion and for nausea and stuff. Can you actually, are you getting that medicinal quality out of the ginger as well, or is this purely aromatics?
There will be some qualities. I mean, I think as always with oils and essential oils, in terms of ingesting, you've got to be careful.
Right.
Um,
Because you don't have the
and
inhibitors in there anymore, right?
yeah, but you've just they're extremely potent. I mean,
Right.
in one drop of CO2 extract or oil is akin to, a whole heap of plants. So
Right.
it's just about
Sure.
control. I mean,
Everything has I tell everybody everything has a neutral, medicinal and toxic level of concentration, and so I guess it's
sure,
really easy to cross the line with this
yeah,
method of
you've got to be
extraction.
careful. You've got to be careful. Ginger's not too bad, but like something like cinnamon, for example, can be problematic.
Hmm.
Can be quite toxic.
That makes
Like
sense.
like if my skin's very robust,
Uh huh.
and I put all sorts of stuff on my skin every day. But if I put pure cinnamon oil on my skin, it burns.
Right.
Um,
Right.
anyway,
I
but
didn't know
so
that.
I do everything. I ingest lots of CO2 extracts. I ingest lots of essential oils,
Mm.
but you just got to know what you're doing. So I always tread carefully.
Yeah, fair enough. Liter and a half is a good starting point. It sounds like for one drop. Is that? I
Yeah,
guess it depends on the item as well. Oh,
sure.
my other guest is actually here. I'm just gonna set her up with with some matcha. She's Sherri from Sister Speak. She's in Victoria. Do you want to take over the stream for just a moment here and tell everybody a little bit more about maybe your book, or if there's something that you want to speak to? I'm just gonna need about 60 seconds to
Sure,
set her up. Okay.
sure, no worries.
Okay, thank you.
You might
I'm
talk a
going to
little
go
bit more
to
about
you. Okay. And then you'll be able to hear me, but the audience won't. So,
it. Fine. Let's talk about ultrasonic extraction. So ultrasound is something I mentioned. It's again very crude way of telling you what ultrasound is. It uses sound waves to create what's called a cavitation in a liquid. It's an extraction method which really disrupts the cell membranes of whatever you're trying to extract, but without the heat degradation of, say, something like essential oil. And it's a very interesting way of extracting different plant molecules. It's something we've been working with a lot more. What's really great about it is that you can extract um, plants very, very quickly into any substrate. So it can be into glycerine, it can be into water, it can be into alcohol, it can be into anything actually. It's also a really interesting method to brew tea, which is fascinating. Um, yeah, I'm really enjoying this tea. I'm going to make some more. It's a good time to. I'm burning some beautiful incense right now. I'm going to share that with you. This guy on the west coast. Hey, I'm just doing a plug for this incense that I'm burning.
okay, awesome. Let's.
It's called
What it?
using incense. He's on the west coast. I can't remember where he is. I think he's near San Francisco.
Okay.
He makes these handcrafted incense in very, very minuscule quantities, and they're really beautiful.
Cool. Okay. Awesome. And you were so I missed the. That's what I mean. It's kind of fun going back on these shows when I do leave for a moment and hearing the whole dialogue I missed. But I wanted
Yeah,
to. So we're gonna be joined really shortly by Sherri, who's the lead singer of Sister Speak. She joins weekly, and she brings us out of the. I mean, she's kind of like she's not an industry person, so she's able to ask questions that bring things a little bit down to earth. So it's good. But she's also got some good technical background too, so it brings a nice balance to the show. So
right.
she's also got 3 studio albums. We've been sponsoring her for over a decade. When I went to Germany with my wife, it was really cool to see a cafe that she was performing at with the JagaSilk logo on it, alongside Taylor on her posters for the audience that was watching her performances. And
Where was this in Germany?
we went to Cologne,
Okay.
and that would have been in 2018, I think, around then. So yeah, it was really fun. Or 2019? Was it 2019? No, I think I'm confusing things. It must be 2018. Yeah.
Well, do we get a song as well? Do we get music?
She just came out of a live stream. She does every Thursday before
Okay.
before JagaVision. So
I,
every Thursday if you go to Sister Speak's Facebook page, or if you join her Patreon or whatever, you get a chance to see her play live during the pandemic. It's been pretty special. And then otherwise, she's quite the tourer. I think she has about 200 shows a year that she does. So it's pretty active. But yeah, she'll be joining us in just a moment. And there's nepotism here. She is my sister. Very proud of her work. And yeah, she's a career musician. So Michael, what did I miss about the incense? You were just, if you were a brief summary for me, I'm very fascinated by that too. But
they're fairly new to me. So this is a new blend that I've just been burning. It's amazing.
Okay.
So it's according to this, a modern version of the classical Buddhist incense recipe, and it's equal parts agarwood, sandalwood, camphor, clove, and Hawaiian turmeric.
That's cool. That's cool.
Using craft incense, and it's very special.
Cool. Okay. Well then, yeah, we'll have to let the audience know. What was the brand name if we're gonna plug these guys?
Yizin.
Yizin.
Yeah. Yizin. Yeah. There you go.
Okay. Awesome. Cool. All right. So there's the plug. So Michael, if I was gonna continue your conversation about ultrasound extraction, or ultrasonic, you said ultrasonic.
Yeah. I was just trying to explain while you were away there what ultrasound or ultrasonic is. So it is what it sounds like actually. So you have this sonotrode, it's called, which you then insert into any type of liquid. It can be water, alcohol, glycerine, whatever you want, and with your plant material, and then you basically pump that liquid with sound, very, very high frequencies, which disrupts the cell membranes of the plant.
Oh wow! Okay.
And then it extracts what's inside the plant into whatever substrate you have your plant in. So it's a very quick and efficient way of extraction, and it's becoming quite popular in sort of like the cannabis industry for extraction, because it is quick, it's much better for the environment, and yes, it's efficient.
Interesting. Okay, no, that's really, really cool. So
let me tell you, it's amazing. Well, it's not as good as traditional methods, but it's very interesting for brewing tea, particularly if you want to do it in cold. If you're doing cold brew, it's really good.
Okay, very cool. So I guess it kind of reminds me of when you're cleaning lenses at an optometrist or something. Hey, like they use this kind of sound to move around the particles and stuff. Is it that kind of technology? Is it related?
Similarly, exactly.
Huh. Oh, that's really cool. Really cool.
Yeah.
Okay. So we have Sherri from Sister Speak joined us just now. Welcome to JagaVision. Thank you for coming on every week, Sherri. Sherri, this is Michael Isted of the Herbal. He's joining us live from Germany.
Cool. Guten Abend.
Alles gut, ja?
Say again.
Alles gut, yeah. It means how are you doing?
Oh, amazing. Okay, I'm so ignorant. I think I can say bitte and Dankeschön. I think that's but you know, you have did the Herbal start in Germany, or you have an English accent, so
it's a UK based company. It started in the UK, and it's very London centric. It was the name comes from an old traditional London herbalist called John Gerard.
Okay.
Hence got a double L on it. It's an old 16th century encyclopedic book of herbs called the Herbal.
Right.
Yeah.
Cool.
But now my family are in Germany, and so I'm in between the UK and Germany. And then when I'm allowed to travel a little bit more the rest of the world.
Okay. That's awesome. Okay. I really want to. Do you have like a storefront or anything, or is this kind of like a nomadic project, or?
www.theherbal.com, double L on herbal, and then we have a little store on there where we are currently we're making lots of beautiful natural cosmetics and really interesting perfumes.
Oh, sweet.
All
cool.
Natural.
Sherri, you missed a whole conversation on CO2 extraction that was really fascinating. For our audience too, Michael mentioned a decoction for extracting flavor, which is more when you, correct me if I'm wrong here, Michael, but when you boil for quite a long time, and you do the extraction over consistent heat, which is different from a steep, which is what we do with tea, which is when we heat up the water, but we take it off of the heat source, and then we put that over the tea, and then as it's cooling, it's extracting, and that's a different style of extraction entirely.
Exactly.
Okay, awesome.
But decoctions are very much what traditionally in traditional Chinese medicine, it's how you take your herbs. So you would boil your herbs and roots and spices for a longer time in a decoction style, lid on, boiled over a period of time. Same in Ayurvedic medicine too, actually.
And Sherri, please step in with any questions that you have here. What we've done so far, is we made an usucha with the Samidori blend. We were talking a little bit about Michael's project. We were comparing some different processes in tea with herbal medicine. I actually had a question here from one of the people in the chat room, Michael, wondering, they said they're enjoying this discussion on fresh and dried herbs for tea. We drink our herb teas both fresh from our garden and dried, and would love to learn more about drying techniques. Do you have any suggestions for a good drying technique for the person in the chat room?
Yeah, absolutely. Depends on the herb, but there's a number of different drying techniques. Less is more, I think, has always been drying. Don't try to dry too much. The simplest technique is just to bundle, again, depending on the herb. So if it's something like lemon balm, Melissa, is to pick, ask the plant for permission first, pick the plant, pick as carefully as you can, pick when it's dry, and then you just tie a string around the bunch of herbs, and then you would tie them up in a cool, dark place.
And you hang it leaves down, right? And the stems up?
Yeah, exactly. So exactly, with the stem up, leaves down, and you can tie it up, or you could just sort of take a bit of cloth over like a frame, and then just pick it and dry the leaves on there. Or if you've got a dehydrator, particularly if it's a bit moist, and you want to dry something a bit quicker, you could use a multi-tray dehydrator. But most importantly is just take care,
right?
Be respectful, and just keep out direct sunlight.
Are you a scissor picker or a hand picker, or what? Is there a different? Does that matter?
Pick with my hands.
Yeah, you can totally.
That's my preferred method.
You can be careful.
Sometimes scissors. You have to have a good pair of scissors with you.
Okay, awesome.
You're picking things like nettle too.
Maybe wear gloves for that one, right?
Yeah, I quite like the sting though. I'm quite into it.
It's a little bit. I hear it's really good for arthritis.
So, it's very good. It provokes like a response. So it's actually quite good if you've got arthritis to put the part of the body that's suffering in with the nettles.
I growing up, my grandmother always had nettle on her property, and I remember whenever we'd fall into the nettle patch. I don't know how we would fall into it. We knew where it was.
Like every day.
Yeah, but there was this issue with somehow falling into the nettle patch, and then it was always all about aloe vera. So to make the sting go away. I wanted to do this. We have while we're talking again, I wanted to take you on the second trip with this matcha. Are you? I know it's late, so I guess this is an unusual moment. You can pretend to drink and then not actually drink it if you want, but
I'm looking forward to drink some more tea.
Okay, great. So what I wanted to do with you is, if I can find my tin, where did I put it? Oh, right, of course, we're here. So I would love you to do another 2 grams for the sieve. Sherri, I actually just prepared it for her, at least the 2 grams. So Sherri, that water needs to be as hot as possible. And if you can put 15 grams of it or a tablespoon of it onto the tea as soon as you can, that would be great, because yours is cooling as we talk, and I kind of forgot about that.
Jared, sorry, are we going for 2 grams again?
We're going for 2 grams, that's right. And then we're going to go for 15 grams of water. Very, very small amount.
Oh, wow.
And Michael, this one, you're going to want to boil the water if you can.
Okay.
So it's supposed to be like a paste.
It's supposed to be a paste. You're going to gently work in the paste. So you're going to work without frothing it. You're going to just gently dissolve the, well,
With
it's
the
not,
whisk?
it's kind of like working it in. There's going to be no dissolving, of course, because it's a particulate rather than a dissolvable solid like, say, salt or sugar. But
Am I still whisking in it?
it's a different style. So I'm waiting for my water to boil. But when you are whisking it in, it's kind of like a gentle kind of working it in, and then it's like a gentle gathering and just a gentle pushing of the water, and then it ends up forming a paste that's similar to the texture of, say, wet paint.
Okay, yeah, mine's a little thicker than that. I did 16 grams by accident.
of water, right? Not tea.
Yeah.
So for those watching, oh, sorry, go ahead. What's up?
Well, I was just curious what city you're in Germany.
Currently, I'm in a little place called Rust, which is closest city is Freiburg, so in the south. I'm literally,
Oh, cool.
I'm right on the border with France. I'm literally like 5 minutes from the Rhine.
Wow. Okay.
Oh, wow.
So I'm equidistant really from Strasbourg in France and then Freiburg in Germany.
Cool.
Didn't you go
I
swimming
spent
in
a
the
lot of
Rhine?
time in Berlin.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. Awesome. Cool. Yeah, I was telling him about the meeting you in Cologne and being really excited, and your performances, etc. You play a lot in Berlin, if I remember correctly, and you get always a nice tour under your belt when you're in Germany.
Yeah, maybe we'll make it to southern Germany next time.
Yeah, you should definitely. Freiburg's beautiful.
Yeah.
It's really it's a very green city,
Cool.
and so yeah, it's very eco-friendly. There's a lot of eco development, green developments, very community based. Yeah, it's a beautiful city.
Freiburg.
Oh wow, that sounds wonderful.
Yeah.
Okay, 15 grams.
Green like matcha.
Yeah, green like matcha.
Green like matcha. So 15 grams of water, is it, Jared? Yeah.
That's right, and very, very little. And then what you're gonna do is you're gonna gently work it in. So this is what it looks like when I'm working it in. Is I'm just kind of gently whisking it. I'm not trying to create a froth. And some people like their koicha even thicker than this. They'll use 3 grams, or they'll drop the liquid amount down to 10 grams. And only the really high grades of matcha, like what we would have called Eagle grade in our old sort of classification system, are really meant for this process. You can make it obviously with any. Technically, you could make it with any matcha out there, but they're not going to be very conducive in terms of enjoyable flavor. So you get this really thick paste. And then when you go to drink it, you're going to take little tiny sips. I'm going to just quickly grab some walnuts. Just give me one sec, because I know this is going to be really, really speeding up my metabolism.
Actually tastes good though. It's bittersweet.
This, I think I prefer this tea, this method.
Yeah? Mm.
Yeah.
Well, it's like sorry, I'm like eating while on the thing, but it's like I always call matcha the espresso of green tea, and this is definitely a lot more in that vein. And what you're supposed to do is take really tiny sips, and you just get this like insane magnification of flavor and aromatics. And this is meant to be shared. You would actually share it with the group that you're having tea with, if you were having tea ceremony and enjoying a koicha in tea ceremony. And then once you've all had a sip, you'll often see people finish this by adding more water, and and making it into an usucha, the style that we had just before this. So you'd finish it by just kind of working it up, and then you're not losing any of the beautiful tea by it just kind of coating the bowl and not really going into your system. So.
Oh, I added the water after like a sip. Is that bad?
No. You know, whatever's comfortable. Normally you would.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. You would drink.
90 milliliters.
Sorry.
That's delicious.
Add 90.
You can totally.
Sorry,
you can add 90. I would probably add a little bit less because you've sipped. I would add more like 60. Yeah. What was that, Michael? You're enjoying this?
Yeah, that's delicious. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I don't drink very much matcha. I drink a lot of tea, but not much matcha. Primarily because it's always quite difficult to find good quality matcha. That's why I was very, very pleased to stumble across you guys when I was in Victoria. It was a very pleasant surprise.
Well, I take that as a big compliment. I do agree that it's hard to find good quality matcha, and I think one of the biggest, I always tell people that the biggest is sort of obstacle is definitely freshness. Like if you get you could travel to Japan and pick up a fantastic, expensive, top grade matcha that was made by, say, like Marukyu Koyamaen, like the big kings of matcha, and you could bring it back with you and you could stare at it for a few months, and then, or even 6 months, and then you could open it up and drink it, and it's not going to be nearly as good as if you'd enjoyed it fairly quickly after you purchased it, because there's a huge opportunity for oxidation because of how fine it's milled. One thing we've been doing since you came in here last time is we've been really trying to identify through milling what our grain size is. So we've been using a grain gauge, and we make a paste and we run it along this gauge, and it tells us how many microns the particulate is. Okay. And the goal with matcha is to get the microns to be less than 10. And if they're not less than 10, then it's not technically achieving its goal. And what we have found is that certain harvests, especially when they're a little bit older, like less young leaves, there's I think an economic incentive for a farmer to just harvest more of the tops of the leaves because they're going to get more product. But you're going to have harder, like it's not going to be as fragile. It's going to be a little bit harder to mill to such a fine level, and it ends up bittering it if you're not careful. And so I think there's a pull when you're exporting to mill a little bit coarser because it's going to be fluffier, it's going to be a little bit easier to whisk, but it doesn't give you the same depth of flavor as if you bring it under 10 microns, and it doesn't give you that same really creamy texture. So really trying to dial in the texture is a huge part of, I think, a really good matcha. But again, the loss you get is just this terrible fast oxidation. Like I think once you open it, you have most teas, you can taste a sort of a gradual decline of vibrancy after you've opened them 4 months in, I think. But with matcha, it's like 2 or 3 weeks. And I think that once it starts to decay, the umami is one of the first things to disintegrate. And so you don't get that nice, beautiful, brothy background flavor. You'll be left with something fairly aromatic and something that still tastes good, but you don't have that brothy, rich, full flavor anymore. And even if you keep it sealed 3 months from the mill date, and you start to taste a little bit of decline. And it's really, really noticeable 6 to 9 months later. And that's in a sealed package. So you can only imagine. So at home, I rarely drink matcha because I'll bring matcha home, but I drink it every day at work. So if I do drink it at home, it's generally on the weekends, and it's just so easy for it to oxidize. I think I have like 12 packages, and I'm just like, oh, why do I do this? Just like
and have you guys noticed, because obviously matcha's become very mainstream over the last sort of 10 years, I guess, more so, and off the back of that, have you noticed sort of like, okay, so people are wanting to take the next step with matcha. So have you seen an increase in, of customers or clients who are wanting to dig a little deeper
100%.
Into matcha?
And that's where we position ourselves really as a company. And that's what, and the reason we do that is because it's out of personal interest. Like I am really interested in the deep dive. I think it's super fascinating, And if we're going to do a project that's psychologically, spiritually sustainable, I think that that's really important to us. And I think it's exactly as you say, as it's been a, I think it was called, when we started 16 years ago, people were saying it was trendy and it's going to disappear in a couple of years. But, every year, more and more, I think, because of of how it makes you feel. Like, you drink it, it's very real. I like to call this the samurai's coffee, like this is a way to really get your system in a place where you are awake. But what's really nice is it doesn't really, for most people, cause a jittery feeling. You get to have this really relaxed. I also like to point out that this is the tea of choice for Zen Buddhist monks before meditation. So it needs to put you in a place where you feel grounded and not like you're flying in outer space somewhere, right? So there is that for sure.
Yeah, and for you to be able to offer your clients this milling or being able to mill fresh for people, I think that is, that's really could be a key to really unlocking the potential of matcha on I'm hesitant to say a wider scale, but
right,
make it more delicious for a lot more people in a more genuine level.
I hope someday there's something like a coffee grinder though, and that you can have, like, I haven't found a residential unit that's quite up to par. There's a unit that came out recently called Kuzen, and I tested it out and it was really interesting, but definitely the particulate size was not where we needed it to be. It was fine, like, I'm being punny here, but it was a fine texture, but it wasn't ideal. It definitely wasn't even close to 10 microns, and it would be great if we could get a technology that could easily, on a kind of a compact countertop level, get people something that's pretty close. Because I would sure love to. We actually, Michael, we recently brought in a tea roaster. Because the firing process, there's 3 minutes of toasting the tencha leaves at the end of the process. That's a fairly artisan process, and we really want to be able to bring in tencha and toast it, and then sell our JagaSilk's toasted tencha to people that have their own grinders. That would be like next level. Yeah.
I when I drink tea, I mostly drink my tea from. I think you've spoken with my friend Tim Doffey at Postcard Teas.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he was on the tea festival. He joined the stream, that 24-hour stream.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so he's doing, what you're doing is very much chimes with what they're doing in London.
Right, yeah. No, he's got, I believe he mills a lot of like teas, like oolongs and stuff. Sherri, were you came in when we were doing the live stream, I think right when Timothy was on. I don't know if you were able to watch it while you were there, but do you remember any postcard teas in the United Kingdom being on the show?
Talking to me?
I am. Yeah.
Oh, I don't recall actually. I didn't necessarily.
I have this tickling memory of you being there right when he was on, but I guess you were here as a support. You were bringing sandwiches and and moral support, which is awesome. Because Michael, I was on that stream with Ryan Moen, the other co-director of the International Tea Appreciation Society, for 24 hours straight.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we co-hosted the entire thing, and it was his idea. He said, part of the fun during COVID lockdown will be watching Jared and Ryan slowly disintegrate over the course of 24 hours. I had easily 40, 50 cups of tea during the process, and I remember sitting there watching a performance of Chinese tea ceremony with like Qing Dynasty era instruments playing, and it was live from Yunnan, China, and we couldn't use Google Meet software, so we'd had to transition to Skype because of different regulations in China. And I just remember sitting back and feeling like I was in another universe. It was very cosmic. It was pretty wild. It was like a whole hour of that in the middle of it was like drinking tea and education, all this stuff, and then suddenly I'm watching this beautiful performance. But yeah, anyway, as an aside, Tim came on the show and we were talking. He was actually really his presentation was on how he felt that the industry was going. It was kind of dumbing down, or it was all about speed, faster, and he felt that the future of the industry was dark, and it was actually quite an apocalyptic vision for everything. So I'd like to hope that, you know, projects like what you're doing, and I think the projects that fascinate him and the projects that fascinate us here at JagaSilk they have a life, that there is going to be a future for them. I don't know though, and maybe you can speak to this, how realistic it is to expect them to scale up though. I think I do this without that expectation. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm not really, I think that the natural drive of a company or a corporation is, how do I scale up? How do I make this bigger? How do I make this broader reaching? How do I, you know, but like, for me, it's like, how do I dig deeper? How do I make this more interesting?
Yeah.
How do I explore more? What are other facets of this? How do I develop what I'm doing in a way so that it can be more supportive of different political ideals that I hold, or different environmental, ethical concerns that I have, right? And I think there's a community of people out there that support this way of doing a business.
100%.
Yeah. So I don't know if that answers your question, because you did ask earlier, you know, have you seen an increase in interest for what we're doing? But I would say yes. I don't think it's at the level that a bank would be jumping in and going, hey, gonna give you, you know, millions of dollars so that we can ride we can ride this ride with you. I think I would get a lot of encouragement to do things differently.
Sure, but someone's making a hell of a lot of money out of Maccha somewhere.
They are, you know, and I think early on I was like, wow, you know, if I just brought in this stuff that's, you know, culinary grade, big quantities, people are going to throw it into smoothies. They'll use it in their cooking. There's I think a lot of money to be made in that, but I think it's also, again, it's a race to the bottom. The next person who comes along who can get a cheaper source, or who can develop a bigger farm that's more automated, and, you know, like, just it's like, it's, again, the parallels in herbs are definitely there.
Yeah, totally.
And then you have these huge fields that are turning into dust storms. It's, you know,
Totally.
overcultivated, the soil's getting ruined, no longer carbon sequestering, you know.
Yeah, it's a problem, and it's a very real
Literally
one.
race to the bottom.
Yeah.
Michael, and Sherri, I just realized that I'd asked Michael to join us until 2, and it's 2:15. I'm sorry it's gone quite a little bit past what I asked from you, Michael. I know you're a busy guy. Did you have any thing you wanted to say at the end here? Is there a final topic that you'd like to address, or something you'd like to speak to?
I wanted to ask you another question, because there was another something that got me quite excited about what you guys were doing, was that you were doing Jun properly too. So
right. Okay.
I was going to ask you about that. How's that going?
Right. You know, and Sherri, Michael actually came in a few years back and got to sit at the bar here, and we had a great opportunity to drink tea together, and we were talking about kombucha and Jun and stuff, and cool. Yeah, it's been great, Michael. I think that we've learned a lot. That's definitely something that we have scaled up a little bit. I think when you were in here last, we were doing everything out of clay fermenters. And we've made a decision after doing a bunch of trial and error to use these 1 BBL or 140 liter tanks. And one of the things that's really done for us is it's really helped us control yeast levels in the brew a lot better, because one of the tanks we got is from a company called SS Brew Tech. And they're based in the United States. They do a really fantastic job in how they put their equipment together. And it's a jacketed unit, so the tank actually has a chilling capacity, because you put glycol into the jacket that surrounds the tank, and it's really easy to clean because we didn't use a chilling coil inside. Instead, the jacketed element really helps to, it really helps keep everything really nice and clean. Anyway, we brew in a fermenter that's about 200 liters. We leave a gap in the top. And we've been keeping the same recipe as we did when you were in last. Okay. But one of the challenges of scaling up was that the yeast distribution within the liquid was really, really different. The way that it all plays in a larger batch. I can only imagine the challenges of those people that are doing like 10 times the size of what we're doing in like a more standard brewery. But
is anybody doing that? Because I've seen very few commercial Juns, and it may be for that reason.
And so what we realized is that, like in sake production or in some beer production, that there's a stir that's required partway through the process. And I think that when you're fermenting in larger batches, or even some people do this with smaller batches, just doing a little bit of redistribution of those yeast particles is really helpful. And so we do that. It helps to distribute it a little bit better. We've been focusing a lot on the tea that makes the most sense. Jun is technically supposed to be a green tea, right? Yeah. But we found that most green teas seem to make the SCOBY too enthusiastic, and it's just too happy in the bottle. It foams really easily. And so we've decided that darker oolongs or crimson teas or even dark teas like pu'er are a lot more conducive to the process. And so that's what we generally use. We use a honey from a beekeeper that's actually been on JagaVision named Theo Frederick. They have about 300 hives that they manage, and that's the food source for the yeast for the fermentation. And then what we do once it's finished fermenting, using, by the way, a week-long kind of really intensive tea extraction that we use using cold water to protect the volatiles. We then we use a pump system to pump it into that jacketed tank, and we turn on a chiller so we don't have to put everything into the fridge like we used to. When you were here before, we would make it in a clay fermenter. We'd transfer it into a keg, like one of those kegs that, like a smaller Cornelius keg, and we would put that into the fridge, and we would chill it for 3 days before we would bottle it, because it would make the yeast sink to the bottom, doing a cold crash. Now we put it in this big tank that has the chilling functionality built into it, and it also has a conical bottom, so we're able to blow the yeast off during the process, and we have a much cleaner bottle now. And the stir helps to bring out flavor complexity, and we're in a place now where we can actually take those bottles. They can be out of the fridge in 40-degree weather, or like the 45-degree craziness that we've been having recently, for a few days, and they're not foaming to the point where they're causing problems like they would have been in the past.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's been really cool. I don't know if I want to, like, I used to be like, oh, you know, it used to be like kind of like I was on a roller coaster ride experience with it, where if I didn't have enough fridge capacity, so in sales I was like constantly trying to get different customers in supermarkets to just, you know, take it when I had too much production. But we found an equilibrium now where I just kind of sit back, and the demand is there. It kind of seems to match what our production volume is, and it's great. we're just producing just enough for what we're selling, and it feels really good. Yeah, we do. Yeah, and then it's like doing 10 fermenters at a time now, so it's a lot easier process. Yeah, that's where we're at. And we also did a DIY bottle filler, which is kind of rad. It's like 4 nozzles, and it's counter pressure, and we hired an engineer to come in and help us build it, and it's really fun to use. So yeah, we're having fun. We're having a lot of fun. I wish that I had sent you some bottles. Maybe we'll have to do another session with you if you're interested. Maybe you can come on.
Well, look, I'm hoping I'll be in BC in spring. I was supposed to be there last year, supposed to be there this year.
Okay.
I'm filming. I'm doing like an online course with Pacific Rim College in Victoria.
Oh, amazing. Okay, very cool. Well, you'll have to come by. We're trying to do a next after our break. Next week we're off, but we're going to come back after that. We're going to be doing a tea clinic, and it's more of a collaborative process. And one of the people we're working with on it is from Cloudwalker Teas, really fascinating tea enthusiast. And we're going to trial a in-person JagaVision, where at least during the pandemic we'll still have a screen between us, but it'll be the computer will be off to the right, and we'll be able to have the guests join us live, which will be pretty fun.
Cool.
Oh.
Right.
Yeah, so maybe we can have you literally here in the courtyard, and we can be outside, and we can drink jun and talk tea. Maybe you can bring some of your herbal concoctions and
with me.
That would be fantastic. That would be really fun. Okay, so maybe we'll see you in the spring.
Awesome.
Okay.
It's lovely to see you both. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you very much,
And
Michael.
we'll see you in person soon. And thank you for the tea. It was amazing. Thanks so much.
Amazing. Thank you, Michael. The Herbal, you can find you at theherbal.com, right? Herbal with a double L.
Double L on Herbal.
And then your social media on Instagram is at the Herbal as well. Sherri Ann, did you have any final words you wanted to say to Michael before he leaves?
Oh, I'm looking forward to visiting Freiburg.
Yeah, let us know when you're here.
Awesome.
Yeah, I'm actually thinking next spring as well, so I'll have the time.
Otherwise, there'll be ships in the night. You can find Sherri Ann at patreon.com/sisterspeak. Also at SisterSpeak Music. For those watching, can check her out. Live streams every Thursday right before JagaVision. She does her hour-long sessions. Just finished recording her 3rd studio album. She's got a live album out that's fantastic. The 3rd studio album, I think, is in a to-be-released moment, but really encourage you to check out her music. Very meaningful and authentic. A lot of different genres that she does. Some really amazing original work. Really a cool video you should check out too on YouTube, Michael. It's called The Stand. It was a epic video that followed some travels in Peru.
Cool.
And yeah, so lots there. But thank you to you both for coming onto the show. And we'll see you both again, I'm sure. And Sherri Ann will hopefully see you in a couple weeks on the show. And I'm sure I'll see you sooner than that in person.
See you soon.
Thank you so much, Michael.
See you. Bye.
You have a fantastic day. Okay, goodbye. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Sherri Ann. Bye.
Love your kombucha and the matcha sweet and bitter at the same time. Thank you.
I got Michael's thoughts on it, and I didn't get yours.
That's okay. No, I said the same thing.
That you were thinking. Okay, fair enough. Yeah, this is. But yeah, I really needed the walnuts. I managed to have too much tea today. But it's all good. It's all good. All right. Well, peace and love.
Peace and love.
Bye. So that was Sherri Ann of Sister Speak joining, and Michael Isted of the Herbal joining live from Germany in Freiburg or near Freiburg. Lovely conversation. Thank you all for watching. I hope you have a fantastic day. We'll see you again, not next week, but the week after. We'll be doing a trial run of JagaVision live from the courtyard. So see how it goes. Have a fantastic day. Take care.